A.J. Brown called out the Eagles' passing game after their win over the Carolina Panthers, and veteran defensive end Brandon Graham hinted at the fallout between Brown and Jalen Hurts, claiming they're no longer friends. Take a listen to A.J. Brown and Brandon Graham.
Offense wasn't fit enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve on? Passing.
How hard is it as a receiver to get into a rhythm when you guys are only throwing the ball like 20 times?
Incredibly tough.
The person that's complaining need to be accountable. And I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he know this. I don't know the whole story, but I know that one is trying. And I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he respond to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed. And I understand that because life happens. But it's the business side that we have to make sure that we don't let the personal get in the way of the business, and that's what we got to do better as right now.
So I want to know, how big of an issue do you think that this is for the Philadelphia Eagles when they're 11-2? That's the interesting. They're 11-2, and we're having problems like this.
I think it could be an issue, actually. My take on this: in the city of brotherly love, there isn't any between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. No love between those two guys. They're not happy. I think basically it's situation for A.J. Brown where, he's averaged 97 catches for almost 1,500 yards and almost 10 TDs in the prior 2 years. This year, he's had 48 catches for 836 yards and 4 TDs, which is on pace for, 67 catches, 1,170 yards, and 6 TDs, which isn't bad, which is good. Over 1,000 yards generally is a really successful season for a receiver, but he's an elite receiver, and he's unhappy, and I can understand why. He only got 4 targets in the last game, and even though they won, and they're 11-2, they beat the Carolina Panthers, and his post-game availability, after receiving low 4 targets, he's unhappy, and he threw his helmet on the sidelines there. They asked him about that, and he said 3 and out. He's a man of few words. He says it's incredibly hard to get into a rhythm when you're only throwing the ball 21 times a game. You heard that. There's not much conversation between him and Hurts about the passing game. Barkley is the new focal point, having an MVP-worthy season, and it's hard to argue with his results, right? And Sirianni's kind of bought into that. He's opted to ride a ball control attack, and the emergence of a young, talented defense to 9 consecutive wins. Hurts only has 5 interceptions this year compared to 15 last year. They seem to have found a winning formula. I'm not sure why they would change. I think A.J. Brown, maybe he needs to get into and buy into the new scheme.
I find it incredibly disappointing in a player of A.J. Brown's caliber calling out his own offense when you're 11-2. Like, this is why the Eagles either have a terrible culture, have a head coaching issue, because once again, what does Nick Sirianni do? Doesn't call offense, doesn't call defense, doesn't call special teams. He's a locker room guy. And the past 2 seasons, the primary issue with the Eagles has been locker room problems. We saw last year A.J. Brown, in a win over Minnesota, but early on in the year, get upset with Jalen Hurts. And we saw that in pieces throughout the rest of the season, where we saw some fractures, and then all of a sudden, a massive break after week 11. Or it might have been week 13. They were 11-1, so that'd be week 13. So, what's happening with Philly? Again, we see players upset after wins. And yes, is Jalen Hurts at fault for some of the... Yes, people breaking down online some of Jalen Hurts' miscalculations or misreads. Yes, that's completely understandable. But you're winning football games. And in fact, this is a winning formula. Because if we look at Jalen Hurts, the first weeks 1 to 4, when he was primarily passing the football, and then the bye week, by the week 5 bye week, and let's bring up the numbers. Jalen Hurts is a completely different quarterback, and he's a much better quarterback the past, 8 weeks? Week 6 through 14. Week 5 was the bye week. So since the bye week, they're 9-0. He's passing only 21 times. Completion percentage is essentially the same. He has 50 fewer passing yards per game. Passing touchdowns to interceptions. This is a big thing we talked about. What's wrong with Jalen Hurts? He's throwing so many picks. Well, now he's 12-1. Pass rating of 113.7. Meanwhile, the first 4 weeks of the season, they were 2-2. Passing attempts, he had 33, so that's 12 more passing attempts per game. Completion percentage was the same at 68. Passing yards per game, 232.5. Touchdowns to interceptions, 4-4. Passer rating, 85. This was a bad Eagles team in the first 4 weeks. Since the bye week, they've been 9-0. They have fewer losses since the bye week than Kansas City Chiefs do. So if you're telling me that you have a problem with winning football games, that is a personal issue. That has nothing to do with anybody, any scheme. You're winning football games. And you're not going for a paycheck. They just paid you $32 million. You signed a redid offer, $96 million for 3 years. This offseason, it's not a contract year. You're not performing poorly. You just want more catches.
It's about him. It's not about the team. It's about A.J. Brown.
Saquon Barkley, I want to say, Saquon Barkley had the third most rushing attempts in the first 4 weeks, and he also had 4.4 yards per attempt. And why don't you go to a guy that now is number one in rushing attempts since the bye week and has 6.2 yards an attempt? That's second in the NFL. Isaac Guerrero, if I'm pronouncing his last name right. He is 6.3, but he's only played 7 of those games. So I don't know if I guarantee in a couple weeks he probably won't even be considered, qualified running back in that time frame.
And Barkley is a chance to break the NFL.
He's on pace to break the record.
He's on the pace to break it, right? And do you think that the Eagles are following the Ravens' winning formula, right? Pass less, run more.
Yeah, exactly.
Pass less,
seems
run
like
more.
A truly efficient offense that keeps working, whether it's the Ravens or the Eagles. And I think, honestly, the Eagles are a much better version of the Baltimore Ravens because it's the same scheme. Run the ball a lot, throw it when you have to. And it works at a very high clip. But as soon as you start throwing the ball a lot more, mistakes increase. It's the same thing with Josh Allen. Now, he had one phenomenal game this past week. But if you ask him to put the Superman cape on every single game, that's where he had a couple missed throws on third down in this game against the Rams, but that's where you get into he's making mistakes. He's trying to make the big time play every single play because he feels like he has to. There is no consistency. We saw that last year and the year before. He has a very high turnover rate. But this season, what do? James Cook got the running game going. They were more effective in the running game. Used his legs, in big time spots. Toned down the passing. Increase the offensive efficiency, take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands more, which decreases the chance of a mistake. And look, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. The Eagles, based on health, you could argue that they're the best team in the NFL. But if we have fractures like this, should you have wiped the Panthers out? Probably, although Bryce Young is playing tremendous. But if we're worried about blowouts instead of W's, that's where I get concerned. Because what do you care about more? Getting 8 catches for 100 yards and having a close game, or you get 6 catches for 60 yards and you blow out teams. But your running back has 130 rushing yards.
That's where I said it seems like it's more about him than it is about the team, and that's a problem. And now it might be premature, but I'm now concerned for now the next week and the following week and the week after that. Because we saw what last year was. We saw throughout the season where A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or whoever was frustrated in the offense. And then we hit, after they go 11-1, 1-6 record the rest of the year. And a horrible playoff loss to Baker Mayfield, who looked like an MVP caliber quarterback in that game. I don't think their defense is going to flounder this year at the end.
Probably
They have new leadership there, new players, some very good young talent. A great defensive coach who's the players have bought into his scheme. I don't think their defense is going to fail them, and I don't think they're going to go away from the new formula with pass less, run more. And Barkley is going to get that record. And the Eagles, who knows? Maybe they'll make the Super Bowl. We'll have to wait and see.
I think based on the Lions' health, there is a very, very good shot of that. But if Nick Sirianni doesn't call plays and he's a locker room guy, why is there so many issues in the locker room? I don't think your star receiver, who he's not upset because of a contract. He's not upset because he's playing poorly. It's just he wants the ball more, it seems. If you're a locker room guy, you think that's positive energy? You think that you should condone that type of behavior or be like, you know what? I'm cool with it. We just saw what happened last year. it broke the team, with several arguments, and then you and your quarterback are apparently, on not speaking terms. Philly, if you're not happy with winning football games just because you want the ball more, I got a problem with that. Because are you looking just to be the superstar on your team, or do you want to be the guy who could hold up a trophy at the end of the year? A.J. Brown seems like he just wants to be that superstar guy. Based on, these comments in last year, too.
Yeah, maybe Sirianni will talk to him. You think he's brave enough to do that?
I don't think he wants to. He seems okay with it, like you read.
I don't know. Well, this just happened, so I don't know whether they'll
we
talk about it.
We saw it last year, too. This is not new for Philly receivers or Philly quarterbacks.
They have to be careful. They got a good thing going. They don't want something to disrupt it.
Yeah.
And this could do that.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.